of the unions from Edmonton here, and mostly it's just groups of concerned citizens. This is a really big public issue, and we have to be able to stand together and show that we're not going to be letting hate groups take root in our city.
How do you think it's going so far?
Well, we did have a really large number confirm on Facebook, and this is still really early. So, like, this many people showed up, and I think that's really great. It's showing that the community is willing to come together to address this issue.
How often do we see instances of racism in this city?
Well, it's a daily thing, and it comes up in like hiring and firing practices, and people getting called things on the street. It's not like racism is a yearly event. It happens all the time, every day. And maybe people don't see it because they're not part of the groups that get targeted. But nobody is completely free of the shackles of racism.
And I'm the first boy he had. So he's like, yeah, I want him to be around me. When? It's on my birthday, September 13th, I'll never forget this. 1993. On my birthday, all he wanted to do was bring me to the mosque.
And then who's in the middle? Does anyone recognize her? That was Ellen Gabriel. She was the spokesperson for the Oka crisis. So that's a bit more localized to Indigenous struggles of land reclamation. Oka was someone wanted to build a golf course on native land, and they stood up and they said no. So that's just trying to recognize that struggle here too. And then on the right, anyone know who that is? Martin Luther King. Yay, thank you. Junior. Yes, thank you. Don't forget that part. All right, cool. Well, let's see. So today we're here today to take a stand against racism locally and globally. And what does that mean locally? What are we talking about there? What, in the streets? You know, there's racism in the streets. There's racism in the workplace. There's racism all the way up to the government. Recently we had Minister Joe Oliver say that energy projects are the best way for dysfunctional Aboriginals to overcome, you know, their social problems. And a lot of groups came out and said, you know, that's really inappropriate. That's really not an effective way to sell your energy projects, and it relies on a lot of stereotypes about Indigenous people. So, you know, I mean, that's like when our top level of our government is using and relying on racist stereotypes. It's pretty interesting. So this year's UN Day of the Day to Eliminate Racial Discrimination, the theme is conflict. And conflict and how racism is mobilized in times of conflict to push through different agendas. And so locally, how do we see that here? We see the government wanting to push through energy projects, and then it relies on this racist stereotype of Indigenous people as dysfunctional. It doesn't acknowledge the history and the legacy of colonialism that might have got them there. It doesn't recognize the theft of land. It doesn't recognize that, you know, there are people here in Alberta who can no longer drink from the stream. They don't trust the fish. They don't trust the moose. You know, so they're being forced off their traditional ways. And so what are they supposed to do? That decision is being made for them. So you got to keep that in mind.
Well, let's show a little bit more enthusiasm. How's everyone doing today? Why are we gathered here today? We want to stop racism. A little bit louder. What do we want to stop? Racism. What do we want to stop? Racism. Exactly. We want to build more tolerance in our community, respect for cultural diversity, for the difference of ideas, all of that. My name's Rod Loyola, and I'm here with a very special friend of mine today. Her name is Juliana Cortez, and she is the local representative of the Canadian Council of Refugees. And one of the things that we need to talk about is actually Bill C-31. How many people are familiar with Bill C-31? Okay. Well, Juliana, I introduced to you Juliana. She's going to talk to us a little bit about Bill C-31 and what the Canadian Council for Refugees is doing in order to address that issue.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Okay, I want to talk about Bill C-31 because there are very important issues that if this bill passes, it's gonna impact refugees and newcomers in very negative ways. One of them is that if Bill C-31 passes, there's gonna be a list of designated countries, so people from those countries are not going to be able to apply for refugee asylum in Canada. Another thing is that Bill C-31 introduces the concept of conditional permanent residence. And what this means is that a person can be accepted as a permanent resident, but if the conditions of their country changes, they can be deported. Even if they have lived in Canada 6 or 7 years, it doesn't matter, they can be deported. So I really want you guys to do something about it. I have a template letter for the MPs, for your member of parliaments. If you guys, you can sign it right here and email and mail it to your MPs. And it has to do soon. It has to be done before next week, because the bill is gonna go to second reading next week. So please let me know if you want to sign it. I have it with me. Thank you.
I was born in Seattle, Washington. Moved to Somalia when I was 6 years old. Lost my father in the war. And if it wasn't for my grandma, I would not be here right now. And a lot of people, my friends, call me grandma's boy because I am a grandma's boy. And I love the raising grannies. Yeah. What is racism? That's like a hard question to answer. Even as a political science student, I always, like, as a sociology man, I always wondered, what is racism? And then I look at Canada, it's like, does Canada actually practice anti-racist policies? No, they don't. Because if you look at the Aboriginals in Canada alone, racism still exists. I'm from Ontario, where Caledonia was inhabited by the Mohawk Nation, and they actually fought to stop building homes in their rightful land. So what is racism? Like, I'm a black man, I'll admit. You guys see me, I'm a black man. But this racism exists with black men? No, it is not. We have to look within ourselves. Aboriginals in Canada have no rights. And as a Somali Canadian and as an activist, that's shameful that our government says that we are anti-racist. We practice multiculturalism, but when we have the largest reserves that are inhabited by people who cannot drink water. That's where I'm from. Like, the water that I used to, like, my family drank was from the river. It was dirty. And to be in this beautiful nation, like, to have all of these people here for this anti-racist rally, I just hope you take one thing. It's like, we need to fight racism within our own country, within Canada. We need to give more rights to the Aboriginals. We need to fight for the Aboriginals, because guess what? This is their land. No matter how people view it, no matter how we see it, this is their land. And they were graceful enough to invite us in. As a Somali Canadian, to come out here to get university education, to a home where university does not exist, where warlords run our country. Warlords run our country. 20 years, can you guys actually, like, imagine if Canada was in civil war for 20 years, or any other European nation was in civil war for 20 years, what the world will do? What did the world do about Somalia? We had the largest famine 3 years ago. And honestly, I'm not gonna... Each individual of you, I give you guys props. Each individual Canadian citizen, I give you guys props. Because without you guys, Somalia would not be where it is right now. Would not have revamped from the famine without your help. But what did the government of Canada do? What did Stephen Harper do?
Bumpkin.
Yes.
Worse than bumpkin.